Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
And that's it. Orbs. See you later.
The nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a fact-heavy show today. So I'm going to go through and, I got some incredible moments where you actually have Democrats that are fighting back against Republicans on the issue of guns. So I actually do believe that's one of the big things that the Democrats actually do care about. I know one of the big issues here. I've got a video of Jamal Bowman versus Thomas Massie. I have Marjorie Taylor Greene telling weird stories, and of course, unsurprisingly, they're not true. So we're gonna get into that. Oh, it's great. Then we have a Trump supporter being asked, what's more dangerous, drag or guns? You're probably going to believe his answer, but it's funny anyway. So we're going to talk about that. And then we also have some pretty interesting emails from Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott that I'm going to share with you today. Hoo boy. All right. So I'm not going to spoil anything. Why don't we get into it? But first, before we do, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps out the show. With that, let's dive in. We're going to start with Jamal Bowman. Okay. New York Democrat Jamal Bowman and Representative Thomas Massie, Kentucky, got into a bit of a heated exchange about guns, gun legislation in the halls of Congress on Wednesday. Take a look.
More guns lead to more death. Look at the data. You're not looking at any data. You're carrying the water for the gun lobby. Look at the data. More guns lead to more deaths. States that have open carry laws have more death. In every school, states that have open carry laws have more death. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Calm down. Children are dying. 9-year-old children. Because the solution is not arming teachers.
All right. So look, this is a pretty great moment, I should say, for a lot of different reasons. Number one, I love the fire and passion by Jamal Bowman. He is actually out there voicing anger that I think we should all feel over what has been, once again, another school shooting. And look, I think that one of the unfortunate things of being somebody who is doing, talks about these issues all the time, because it seems to happen all the time. And of course, Congress, because they're constantly having to talk about this and debating this, is that there tends to be an effect of desensitization to this entire issue. I mean, just due to the sheer volume of, mass shootings, school shootings. But then, of course, in order to get over that, you kind of have to sit down and really examine, like, you got to look at the effects of it, the carnage, the aftermath, the holes, sometimes literal, in people's families and their lives and the victims. And of course, when you think about the victims, in this case, you had 9-year-old children. They're not going to be able to live their lives. They don't have any lives left. They were taken. And when you think about all this stuff, it is enough to break someone down mentally. And so it's really nice to see some of our lawmakers respond to this in, I think, an appropriate way, in a very human way. So that said, speaking of in a not human way, Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie was a guy that was arguing with Jamal Bowman, and you could see that there was no passion, just the same regurgitated talking points. And look, in my mind, and maybe it's easy for me to cast aspersions, but I don't think they care. It didn't happen to their kids. I think a lot of right-wing politicians, however, and especially pundits, are super giddy over this particular mass shooting. Why is that? Well, because the shooter was transgender and identified as a man. The only thing that would have made this better for those people, and I mean the conservative politicians and right-wing pundits, is if the shooter had been a black trans Muslim immigrant from Mexico who happened to be quoting Das Kapital during the rampage. Oh, they would have loved that so much. But hey, they're happy probably because it wasn't another white cisgender right-wing male. And so you've seen them take the trans narrative and run with it. So now that said, Bowman said, hey, look at the data, look at the data, look at the data. Let's do that. Let's look at the data, because I think that's a very good thing to do. So he says more guns equal more gun deaths, right? Well, let's look at gun ownership by state. Okay? Let's look at the places where the most guns and the most gun ownership, and we'll see if that's true. So now we're specifically looking at the total percentage of gun ownership based on population. Based on this, the state of Montana has the highest gun ownership rate, with 66.3% of adults owning a firearm. Wyoming closely follows at 66.2%, Alaska in third at 64.5%. So now, what about rates of deaths caused by gun violence? Well, the three highest states were Louisiana, Mississippi, and Wyoming. And the fourth state, of course, I'm sorry, you have four states that are Louisiana, Missouri, Wyoming, and Mississippi, and they have the highest rate of deaths caused by gun violence. Now, Mississippi also was rated the top state as both the weakest gun laws and the highest death rate. They have a gun ownership percentage of about 55.8%. So, okay, not necessarily the highest rate of gun ownership, but they do have incredibly loose gun laws, and so it's pretty high up there. Louisiana, over 50% ownership. Missouri, around 50% ownership. So, look, generally, states with higher gun ownership, coupled with loose gun laws, they have, arguably, the most deaths from gun violence. Those are facts. Those are just numbers. You can't really dispute numbers. You're not going to sit there and argue against a spreadsheet. It just is what it is. You either accept the numbers and accept the facts, or apparently you're going to be Thomas Massey and you don't. Simple as that. So now let's look at the other side. States that have lower rates of gun ownership and how many gun deaths they have. Massachusetts and New Jersey had the lowest gun ownership rates, 14.7%, followed by Rhode Island with 14.8% and Hawaii with 14.9%. New York actually has a gun ownership rate of 19.9%. Because there's more than just New York City. There's actually places where people live outside of New York City. So now, gun laws, both Massachusetts and New Jersey also have some of the most strict gun laws in the country. So, and so it's, they also have some of the lowest rates of gun deaths. It's weird. It's almost as if there are less guns and low rates of gun ownership lead to less gun deaths. Whereas if you have a place that has more guns in it, that would leads to more gun deaths. And by the way, that it again also includes accidents, suicides, and of course homicides. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's almost just like, hey, places where there are more cars, there are more car accidents. Yes, you have more guns. You're gonna have more gun deaths, especially if you have weaker laws when it comes to regulating those guns. Now, the study again notes that the states that have that even the states that have some of the highly restrictive gun laws still do see firearm deaths. And look, a lot of it comes from guns coming across state lines. In fact, a study noted that when guns from another state are found at a crime scene, 4 out of 5 usually come from states with weaker gun background check laws. So one example of that is Chicago. So Chicago, and again, right-wing politicians and pundits, they come out and they say, oh, look at the gun crime in Chicago. And they mainly just mean black people, let's be honest. But here's the thing, right? Chicago, they also cite it as, Chicago, look at the murder rate, look at all the guns there. Gun control doesn't work. Well, here's the thing. ATF Trace data showed that in the year 2020, the top 5 states where guns were recovered in Illinois that were used in gun crimes were purchased about less than half of the guns used in gun crimes in Illinois were purchased in Illinois. A lot of them came from Indiana, Missouri, Wisconsin, and even Kentucky. So again, you have less than half the guns used in gun crimes in Chicago being from Illinois. Illinois has tighter gun laws. So that means that places that these guns that are going to places that have stricter gun laws are coming from places that have looser gun laws. So, yeah, again, that's a fact. All right, so now let's look at Massey and his plan to stop mass shootings in schools. Take a look.
We've got guns here to protect us, and I believe the kids should have somebody to protect them. Every school that's allowed it has never had a shooting, not even an accidental discharge at any of the schools.
So his plan, more guns in schools, arming teachers, again, which a majority of the teachers are against. The population is generally divided on that issue. And then another thing is to, you got to put armed cops in the schools. But let me point out some inaccuracies. He said, oh, well, there's never been a shooting in these schools that have guns in them, like armed resource officers. There's never ever been even an accidental discharge. Not one. You know, except when in Pineview Elementary School in Rockwood, Tennessee, where on March 13th, 2020, a school resource officer unintentionally discharged his firearm into his office at the school. And except, March 5th of 2020, where a school security guard had unintentionally shot a school maintenance worker in the eye while showing him his gun in the parking lot. Or, that time at Pachaco Middle School in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's on December 4th, 2019, where a school resource officer unintentionally discharged his duty-issued handgun into his office. A wall was struck, but thankfully nobody was injured. Waitman Middle School, Wesley Chapel, Florida, on April 30th, 2019, where a school resource officer was leaning against a cafeteria wall with his agency-issued weapon. And of course, it fired into the wall while it was still in the officer's holster. Accidental discharge, people. It apparently happens. There's more. In April 5th, 2019, in Milwaukee, at St. Josephat Parish School, a janitor who was armed. Why? Well, his gun, or their gun, unintentionally discharged, and a student was bruised by falling debris caused by the bullet hitting a wall. In Blountsville Elementary in Blountsville, Alabama, on March 22nd, 2019, a substitute teacher unintentionally discharged a gun in a first grade classroom. One student was sent to the nurse's office after being struck by a bullet fragment. In Seaside High School, Seaside, California, on March 13th, 2018, a teacher unintentionally fired a gun in class. One 17-year-old boy suffered moderate injuries when fragments of the bullet ricocheted off the ceiling and lodged into his neck. But there's never been an accidental discharge in a school where there were guns ever. Look, that's not even a fraction of all the incidences that we've seen in school where there were accidental discharges of guns in the schools from the resource officers or the teachers themselves. And there's also a lot of instances where, again, these guns were just left around somewhere in the school and students would find the gun. Now, thankfully, in those situations, and a lot of them, there were no injuries. But it would stand to reason that if you have more guns in the schools, situations like that will happen more often. It's just a numbers thing. And that there is a possibility that some of those incidences might actually turn to be deadly or dangerous. But let's leave that part, right? And go on to whether or not armed security guards in schools are effective at stopping school shootings. Because you could say, oh, look, okay, so there are accidents sometimes, things happen, people make mistakes, what are you gonna do, right? But you know what? We're okay with that because, those guards, they're protecting the children. They are stopping all these different mass shootings and school shootings. So it's an acceptable risk. Except, no, that's not what happened at all. According to The Trace, a nonprofit newsroom that focuses on gun issues, in 2018 alone, there were at least 4 prominent school shootings. In 3 of them, you had armed guards that failed to stop the shooter from killing. Actually, that's all 4 of them. This happened at Kentucky's Marshall County High School in January of 2018, Florida's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in February, Maryland's Great Mills High School in March. In those schools, attackers stormed campuses despite the presence of armed guards. Now, in Santa Fe, which is, again, touted by people like Ted Cruz, Republicans, they look at Ted Cruz and they say, what a victory. You see, it worked. We had armed guards in the schools and they stopped that school shooter. They had 2 armed guards. And yes, they did manage to pin a shooter into a classroom until police arrived. But that was after 10 people were killed and 13 were wounded. So even the armed resource officers, and of course, look, if the armed resource officers were there, yeah, you could definitely make an argument that, well, that shooter would have been more successful and killed more people. But you already had 10 that were dead and 13 that were wounded. Wouldn't a better thing, instead of having people react and you still have people that end up dying, to prevent the thing in the first place? To prevent the mass shooter from going into the school in the first place? In the most recent mass shooting in Tennessee, the shooter shot out the doors, shot out the glass, and crawled right in. But we got to harden the schools, you know. You got to harden it. Well, how hard are you going to make schools? You making them into a prison? Now, look, there's more. A 2021 study conducted by researchers from the University at Albany and Rand between 2014 and 2018 found that school resource officers, while they do effectively reduce some form of violence in schools, they do not prevent school shootings or gun-related incidents. And you're going to love this. They also found that schools with resource officers report more suspensions, expulsions, police referrals, and student arrests. And those harsher disciplinary punishments disproportionately fall on black students, male students, and students with disabilities. Because, of course, which is why they really like having these school resource officers, because they go extra hard on the black kids and push them down the school to prison pipeline. Another 2021 JAMA network study conducted by researchers at Hamline University and Metropolitan State University of Minnesota found that controlling for factors such as location, school type, and region, the data they gathered showed armed guards were not associated with significant reductions in rates of injuries during school mass shootings. Huh. So, that's the data. Look, Bowman is correct. Massey is not. And it's not, understand this shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican thing, right? These are facts. Facts do not have a political bias. Facts are what they are. You can, again, either accept them and support policies that are based on factual information, what works and what does not work, or you don't. And while you're making that decision, while you're having that argument, more children are being literally murdered. Just know that that is the cold, hard reality. The Brainchild 2K says, I support gun ownership. I just can't imagine my 60-year-old third grade teacher with a gun. I know, right? I also agree with gun ownership. I'm fine with it. But there's just some places where you shouldn't have guns, and some guns that shouldn't be in the hands of certain people, and some guns that shouldn't be in the hands of, well, really anybody. Okay. Moving on. Let's go to more congressmen on congressman action, but not in that way. As you're about to see,
sexual anarchy.
There's none of that, thankfully.
We have SROs on every school. Did the good guys with the guns stop 6 people from getting murdered? No. But you know what? AR-15s, you know seen what those bullets do to children? You know why you don't hunt with an AR-15 with a deer? Because there's nothing left. And there's nothing left of these kids when people go into school and murder them while they're trying to read. You guys are worried about banning books. Dead kids can't read.
That was Democratic Representative Jared Moskowitz, who was responding to one of Marjorie Taylor Greene's insane tangents. I have more video of that exchange because it is fantastic, specifically Marjorie Greene and what she says. But first, pointing out how the right wing is currently focused on banning books is, I would say, a pretty devastating point. You know why? It's because they're doing that, claiming to do it in the name of protecting the children. Oh, we got to protect the children. You see, the children, they're being indoctrinated. That's what's going on. They're being indoctrinated and they're being turned gay. Well, first of all, no, that's not the reality. You don't turn people gay. That's not a thing that happens. But most importantly, in relation to this, children are not dying from reading books about racism and LGBTQ people. They are dying from gun violence. It's the #1 killer of children in America. Not drag shows, not books, not CRT, unless, of course, the CRTs in question are the old TV/VCR carts that could potentially fall in your head. That could probably kill you or injure you. Y'all who are my age, you know what I'm talking about. Although when you see that get reeled into your class, it is kind of exciting. Oh, yeah, we get to watch a movie. But look, none of the things the right wing have been blaming these school shootings on, those things are not the things that are actually killing children, okay? But nonetheless, in the next video here, Green is going to make a common argument on the right. Let's take a listen.
We have SROs on every school. Did the good guys with the guns?
Yeah, when I was in 11th grade and Joe Biden made our schools gun-free school zones, one of the students in my school brought 3 guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because he was the only person with a gun. There was no good guy with a gun to protect us kids at school. You want to know why the shooter is dead in Nashville, the trans shooter? You want to know why? Because a good guy with a gun killed that woman. She identified as a man. She was mentally ill, probably taking hormones, and she went in and murdered children and adults in this Christian school in Nashville. So if you want to have a good talk about schools and protecting children, we need to talk about protecting our children the same way we protect our president, we protect our celebrities, we protect this building.
My time.
All right, there was a lot there. There was a lot. So let's start with the obvious thing first. Back when I was 11 years old, Joe Biden was president and he made schools gun-free. Wait, what? Hold on here. Look, I know Joe Biden is getting up there. Marjorie Greene, though, is 48 years old, meaning she went to school during the presidency of not Joe Biden, but George H.W. Bush. Because he was the one who signed into law the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990. By the way, that passed through the House of Representatives with an overwhelming 313 to 1. Wait. So wait, where exactly did Joe Biden fit into this? Oh, well, you're gonna love that actually, because it turns out she got that information from a meme. Yep, memes. the best memes, the greatest memes, the realest memes, except they're not real at all. Yes, you're not going to be surprised that that is, again, completely untrue. I know, right? We have a legislator that uses memes. And incorrect ones. What an embarrassment. So let me give you facts on what happened. The Gun-Free Zone Act was introduced by a Wisconsin senator named Herb Kohl. That bill was packaged into the 1990 crime bill. So this is where Joe Biden actually is involved, because Senator Joe Biden had sponsored the 1990 crime bill, which, again, in my opinion, was a disaster for the black community, the crime bill overall. Now, afterwards that this was passed, and by the way, conservatives love the crime bill. But, okay, now in 1995, the Supreme Court actually struck down the Gun-Free Zone Act. And so that's because of the United States versus Lopez decision. And so afterwards, Senator Kohl had amended the law to then limit applications to guns affected by interstate or foreign commerce. So according to Reuters, Kohl reintroduced the Gun-Free Schools Act of 1995 in the Senate on June 7th, 1995. And was Joe Biden even a co-sponsor? No, he was not. His name does not appear among a list of its 10 co-sponsors from both parties in congressional records. So once again, Marjorie Taylor Greene gets her information from a meme, a right-wing meme. What an absolute total embarrassment.
Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
Stupid.
You idiot. Okay, anyway. Overall point, though. After the second Bush administration, not the first Bush administration, when she was in high school, but the second Bush administration, that's George W., he decided to, and Republicans, decided to let the assault weapons ban that was signed into law under Bill Clinton to expire. And afterwards, you ended up seeing an increase in mass shootings, which also include school shootings. In fact, I have a graph showing that. Mass shootings in the U.S. You see there, 2004 is when the assault weapons ban expired. And wow, would you look at that? More mass shootings. Weird how that works out, huh? Man, I wonder if those things might be related in any way, shape, or form. Probably not, though, you know. Of course. No, Moskowitz also pointed out that, yes, Republicans let the assault weapons ban lapse, and also pointed out that putting armed guards in schools hasn't worked. You saw that part of the video here. But here's the thing. More guns in the schools is not the answer. It just isn't. Now, look, the last thing that I want to address here is not it's a talking point that I don't see addressed a lot. And maybe that's just me not, seeing enough people really think about this point. But talking about celebs, politicians, people in Congress having armed guards. I think there's a reason for that. For one, obviously, since they are public figures, there's a better chance, especially when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to today, the amount of death threats politicians get and public figures, it's a lot. So, look, armed guards for those people do make sense because again, these armed guards are generally protecting a few people, generally a family at most, from very specific kinds of threats. And it's more than just the guards. There's, people that are looking for specific threats against specific lawmakers. And of course, any threat that's directed towards a lawmaker generally gets shared with people like the Secret Service, and there's different investigative bodies that will look into threats, FBI, etc. And so, and that, again, that's because public figures get death threats all the time. You know who also gets death threats? Media. David Pakman, for example, is another YouTuber. You might have heard of him. He made a tweet that went viral, and lo and behold, he got an outpouring of death threats from the right wing. But here's the thing. In media, we're all kind of used to that because we know the vast majority of them are generally not serious. But at the same time, you never really know. So you got to be a little bit careful. So that's why, again, the bigger of a public figure that you are, the more likely you'll be getting security guards. Now, how this is different than schools, and why I'm addressing this point in the first place, is that generally there are not people out there making specific threats against school children. And that's generally a good thing, right? And look, there's hundreds, sometimes thousands of children that are in these schools or school districts. And oftentimes, not always, but it sometimes happens to be one of the students, maybe a current student or a former student, that ends up becoming a mass shooter. Again, not in every circumstance or case, but in the case of Nashville, for example, yes, that shooter did happen to go to that school and appeared to have some pretty personal grievances against people there. And of course, that does not make it right at all. And it should go without saying that those of us on the left, those who are trans allies, we of course will denounce this. It's not even in question. And so it irritates me. You're going to denounce that. You're going to, all trans people, you're going to denounce that. What? Oh, of course. It's the most ridiculous thing. But anyway, look, the threat for schools, for school children, when it comes to guns, it doesn't mainly come from random people outside the way that it would come from, or I would say the way that it would affect a celebrity or, things like that, or a politician. Okay. Generally, the threat usually comes from the inside. And the other thing is, we don't know where the next shooting is going to happen. So there is that randomness to it. And look, the school resource officers, if they're in the schools, they don't know. They're often taken by surprise by a mass shooter. And look, when that school resource officer gets taken by surprise, very likely they're going to end up being the first victim. And then that mass shooter is going to get another gun. Another weapon to use against students to shoot indiscriminately. And so not only that, but of course, these mass shooters tend to usually be more heavily armed, have something to do with, our very lax gun laws. So they usually have rifles, ammunition, body armor, and a plan. They know the insides. They know where the guards are. And so it makes it much different than if you were talking about a celebrity, a politician, or a public figure. This is why the majority of shootings in schools are not prevented by or even thwarted by armed guards in the schools. At the end of the day, this is an idea, arming the teachers and arming, putting more guards in schools. It's something that requires little thought, but feels good. Oh, okay, more people with guns in the schools to counter. oh, okay, I don't have to put much thought into it because it just makes me feel safe. But it doesn't work. It is based on fear, but it's not effective. And so the people that are pushing this understand that either they do not know that this is a real solution, or they know that it's not a real solution, but it goes along with them and what they're selling, which is fear. I would say that fear is also one of the reasons that they turned this horrible tragedy into a crusade against trans people. It's all to try to sell that fear. Okay. Moving on here. Let's go to drag versus guns. Here we go. A supporter of former President Donald Trump believes that it's not the guns that are killing people, it's drag queens.
Which do you think are more dangerous, drag shows or guns to children?
Drag shows.
Drag shows. How many people do you think have been killed at a drag show?
I don't know, but the long-term effects are detrimental.
How many people do you think die every year from guns?
I have no idea.
48,000.
48,000? Yeah. Okay. Well, there's probably 100,000 that die from drag shows.
What? Wait. Okay, first, credit to Jason Salvig of The Good Liars. Because he has once again brought us all a glimpse of the MAGA mind. Not mega mind, MAGA mind. There's nothing mega about that. Apparently, drag has killed over 100,000 people. Stupid. I honestly don't know what to say to that. In what universe? Look, seeing a man in a dress with exaggerated makeup for them is somehow worse than 48,000 people a year dying from gun-related violence. They think, oh, no, it's killed way more people. Where's the number? Where's the evidence of that? Oh, you know what? Right.
Just forget about the evidence.
I knew that. Of course. I do not understand. I don't understand these people. It's like we really are living in an alternate universe. What? It's going to it's breaking my brain. Honestly. What? Okay. Collect myself for a second here. Let me just ask. What would be the detrimental effect of seeing a drag show? Honestly. I do know the answer from them. Well, you don't know. You're sexualizing the children. First of all, drag is not inherently sexual. And while there is, certain R-rated, X-rated drag shows, those are not the ones the children go to. This is somebody in drag generally reading them a book. What's the issue there? But let me just go to the hypocrisy for a second. These are a lot of the same people who take their little boys to Hooters. Nothing special about that, though, right? And then go home and watch Toddlers and Tiaras. You want to talk about sexualizing children? Exposing them to inappropriate ideas? I'm just saying. Look, watching people perform in drag, by the way, does not make anyone gay or trans. That's not what happens. Gay and transgender people are not manufactured by society or media or pieces of literature. That's not what happens. There's no magical incantation that turns you to the gay. It's like, gay now. Oh my God, no, I'm gay now. Oh shit. No, that's not the reality. It doesn't make any sense. Look, gay and trans people have always been here. By the way, they're perfectly natural, perfectly valid, and not in any way, shape, or form related to pedophilia. This is a straight up lie. At the end of the day, there is no detrimental effect on children when they see a man in a dress and exaggerated makeup. Are we even talking about drag? We could be talking about clowns right now. It sounded the same thing. Look, there is no detrimental effect. There's no detrimental effect also from children being made aware of the existence of drag queens and the greater LGBTQ community. However, apparently there's a detrimental effect for someone in there, and that's the people who are obsessed with trans people. I mean, look at how much the right wing is obsessed with trans people. They talk about trans issues more than trans people. No one is more obsessed. Look, I talk about transgender issues a lot on the show. Do you know why? It's because I'm pushing back against the right wing and their nonstop attacks against the transgender community. It is nonstop. If they were not attacking trans people constantly and would allow them to live their lives, we could actually talk about policy. Talk about other things. But no, it's because trans people live rent-free in their heads, the right wing. They can't seem to stop thinking about them, talking about them. Perhaps they're even secretly, fantasizing about them. Hey, you know what? Fine. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But for God's sakes, there is something wrong with passing laws against them and criminalizing them in their existence. This is Nazi stuff, what the right's doing. And look, let me point that out. You hear a lot of the same rhetoric about trans people now that you heard in Nazi Germany about gay people, especially gay men. Let me give you the details on that. Nazis believed that gay men would seduce young men and infect them, not with a health virus or something, but would infect them socially or something with homosexuality. That's Nazi beliefs. They also, by the way, see if you've heard this one, claiming that gay people were part of a Jewish conspiracy to undermine the German people. Have you heard this one before? They also would conflate homosexuality with child molestation and the seduction of youth. They also would ban any books related to LGBTQ themes, would make lists of people believed to be gay, and between 1933 and 1945, arrested an estimated 100,000 men. All it took was the accusation that someone might be gay, and you would be arrested, interrogated, incarcerated, castrated, some of them at least, and around 60% of them died. Nazi stuff hasn't gotten to this point, but don't think it couldn't. Now, for transgender people, by the way, they were also targeted by the Nazis. And the Nazis used laws against cross-dressing in order to get them. By the way, in 2022, the Regional Court of Cologne ruled that denying that trans people were also victims of Nazis would qualify as a denial of Nazi crimes. It's a fun fact. So, look, not only is the right obsessed with transgender people, but are openly, and you've heard it, Michael Knowles saying we must eliminate transgenderism. They're out there echoing rhetoric that the Nazis used. Now, if you're talking like a Nazi, good chance that you might be one. And if you're not, whoa, I'm not a Nazi. What are you talking about? You call me a Nazi? Well, you might want to go back and re-examine your own beliefs. Because if you don't want to be a Nazi, then stop repeating Nazi talking points and using Nazi beliefs and being on the side of Nazis. It's really simple. Very, very simple. Now, there's more, by the way. Propaganda minister Heinrich Himmler also claimed that homosexuality would lead to the end of the country and cause depopulation by reducing the number of men who are available for reproduction. Because again, where have we heard that before? Look, I hate to go down this road, but this is where that movement's heading. While it is fun to make fun of this guy for saying stupid, ridiculous things, let's not understate the end results that this kind of thinking, this kind of rhetoric leads to. Which leads me to the final point. Never fall for the idea that what happened in Germany, couldn't happen here. Because it could. Okay. Sounds also like the communists, but the Republicans, like DeSantis, is saying that he is protecting our children from communists. Oh, there are these people. There's a certain group of people that I've seen that are claiming, that they're like communists. I guess they go by the moniker of tankies. That are definitely with the right on these issues. So you're not 100% wrong on that. And it is important to point that out. And it's wrong no matter what side it comes from.
Pink-haired communist.
Okay, anyway. Let's move on to Fox News. Okay. Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott told executives to stop fact-checking Trump because it would be bad for business. According to slides shown by Dominion Voting Systems that contain emails from Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott to Executive Vice President of Primetime Programming Meade Cooper, Well, Scott had been insisting that journalists, yes, and there are journalists at Fox News, stop doing their jobs. You know, literally stop doing journalism because it looks bad for us. I've got some examples. One Fox News anchor, Eric Shawn, had on multiple occasions pushed back on Donald Trump's false election fraud claims on air using factual information. I know, crazy, right? Now, another anchor, Neil Cavuto, had also directly fact-checked a Trump official, which made Suzanne Scott very, very, very unhappy. In fact, here is the email. This has to stop now. This is dated December 2nd, 2020, with the subject line, Fox News Eric Shawn fact-check Trump dump claims. So that, of course, comes from...
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
The big, massive dumps of ballots. Yeah, ballots. Okay. So Scott wrote, I'm going to address this with you and Jay in a little tomorrow. This is bad business. And there clearly is a lack of understanding of what is happening in these shows. Bad for business. The audience is furious, and we are just feeding them material. Bad for business. Shh, stop telling people facts. Stop pushing back against lies. We're going to lose money. Our audience doesn't like it. They don't want to see factual information. Please, please, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, I have more. In another instance, Scott went after an anchor for fact-checking false claims about the election being made by Donald Trump's team. Take a look at that. This is Fox News betrayal. There's a question hanging in the air. Ah, yes, a question, yes. Our talent must stop disrespecting the audience. Let me just stop there. Isn't disrespecting the audience not telling them factual information? Even if, of course, it's not what they wanted. I mean, you're a Trump voter and you voted for Trump in 2020 and you wanted him to win. Saying that he didn't win, that's disappointing. I understand. There are a lot of people that are disappointed in 2016 that Donald Trump won the election. Now, of course, the right laughs at those people. You never forget the woman that was just breaking down screen. That's constantly being used as a meme by the right wing right now. It's the meme that never dies. But hey, people get upset when their side loses. I get it. But facts are facts. To disrespect your audience is to lie to them. Now, that email, by the way, was related to Neil Cavuto cutting away from a November 9th press conference by then Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Now, Kayleigh McEnany, during that conference, made baseless accusations days after the 2020 election that it wasn't that it was the Democrats that were committing the voter fraud. It said, Neil doesn't think the American audience is smart enough to make a decision for themselves in watching a press conference. Terrible. Funny enough, McEnany is a Fox News host now. So McEnany lied, got a job. Again, she made things up out of whole cloth, and she was rewarded for it. Neil Cavuto, who I do not agree with on the politics at all, he was yelled at. Again, for just cutting away from a press conference filled with falsehoods. But there's more. There's more. Oh, there's always more. And another email From November 19th, Scott wrote, I'm getting major incoming on her editorializing at the top of Dana's now. I'm assuming that's show. Dana's show. And her dismissive tone and indifference to the audience. We need to manage this. I saw she just did a hit in Cavuto. I hope she didn't double down. I can't keep defending these reporters who don't understand our viewers and how to handle stories. They don't understand our viewers. See, they don't understand the viewers tune in to not get factual information. They tune in to hear the things that they want to hear. You don't understand the audience. You have to understand, I understand them. I know they want to be lied to. So we're just going to keep lying to them. How dare you tell them the truth? How dare you? She continued by saying that the audience feels like we crapped on and we have damaged their trust and belief in us. We lost 25,000 subs from Fox Nation. Oh my God. We can fix this, but we cannot smirk at our viewers any longer. So, okay, this is about Kristen Fisher, a Fox News White House correspondent who left in May of 2021. So now Fox News, of course, told Mediaite, this is about the tone and delivery of the correspondent. It has nothing to do with fact checking. Wait, tone and delivery, that's not going to elicit this kind of response. Seriously. And again, I can't keep defending these reporters who don't understand our viewers and how to handle stories. And that they feel that we have crapped on them. No, you do that every single day. Every day. Every time you lie to them, you are disrespecting them and crapping on them. That's what's going on here. Look, here's the thing. This was all about Fox News viewers wanting to be lied to about the election. And in the rare times that Fox News correspondents would push back and actually give factual information, and it's rare, but they do it or have done it, those viewers get pissed off and they'll go to Fox News and OANN because those channels were more shameless in the lies that they were telling. Simple as that. Look, the bottom line here is Fox knows its audience. Suzanne Scott knows the audience. They know that if they say things the audience doesn't want to hear, that they will nope out. They'll leave. Gone. Because they don't want to hear facts. They don't want to hear that the election was not stolen. They don't want to hear that Donald Trump is a gigantic liar. It's a stone cold fact that Republicans wanted to be lied to. Now, the kicker, of course, is that most of them, to be fair, don't know that they're being lied to. But it doesn't matter. It's comforting. Because when you do tell them the facts, they reject it. They're going to go to the comfortable lie. That network has pushed narratives for decades that are not true. Since their inception, it's the whole point. They claim that illegal aliens are coming to the border. They're voting in elections along with the dead people. They get zombies. The fraud, it's so rampant. And now, all that we have to do as Republicans, we just have to get rid of the fraud. That's it. We just have to stop the fraud by making voting so much harder to do. And once we do that, the real Americans, they'll come back and take back the country from those pretenders, those pretend Americans. No, the reality is Republicans don't have the numbers anymore. There is demographic change, but also younger generations are just far more progressive. And they also don't rely on single sources like legacy media. A lot of Fox viewers, all they do is watch Fox. They don't watch anyone else. Maybe they'll tune into Newsmax once in a while. Maybe they'll listen to some right-wing radio, but mostly it's going to be Fox News. But younger people, more diverse. They do know that gay and trans people non-binary, Black, Latino, Asian. They know people. They don't buy into the lies about those groups that a lot of these Fox shows peddle. The Republican Party sees the writing on the wall. If they do not change, then they're going to basically phase themselves out of existence. That, or they see that, or they see something else. Why don't we just encourage a fascist coup? Oh, yeah, I think we'll go in that direction. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Fox News, however, generally they're a business. Businesses are there to make money, and keeping their audience there who enjoys being lied to, as long as it keeps the money rolling in, that's all that matters to them. Okay. Did I say the TikTok teacher explaining the classroom emergency bucket and backpack? I did not. I did not. By the way, over to Twitch here, KF Logan 1875, thank you for the rating party of 62 over on Twitch. I'm just finishing up here with my last story, and then I'll send you all onto someone else. But again, thank you for the raid. It's to finish up my Fox News story. Weaponized cognitive dissonance. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for the link, by the way, Designer Dragon. Let's see. Why don't we take these off the screen and thank some members on our YouTube page. Dwight Boone, thank you for becoming a member. And thank you for the $5 super chat. Saying this.
Just forget about the evidence.
It's true. No Man's Jam, thank you for the very kind $5. And says, facts don't do what I want them to. Talking heads, cross-eyed, and painless. Let me just add,
wet ass P word.
You know, from the person who says facts don't care about your feelings. Koru, thank you for the very kind super chat as well. And the reminder that we really do.
We have to keep our country gay.
We've got to keep our country gay. That's right. That's right. All right. Moving on. Let's send the Twitch audience. Thank you again for joining us. We're going to send you over to James from the internet, if you're interested in going over there. With that, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Check out our videos over on our YouTube page or our Facebook page. Like all that stuff. Become a supporter. Hit up our Patreon page if you haven't already. If you want to support the show, if you're able to support the show, it's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. And with that, love you all. Have a great night. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody.
There's some whores in this house.
Sexual anarchy. Pink-haired communist. Can't let that happen. Obama. Oh no.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.